Hey there, greetings, good people. This is Jay Artis-Wright, your host of Choice Words, a podcast by Freedom to Choose Schools. And today's episode is about leadership, talent, and power, specifically parent power. And I am so excited to be joined by a friend, a colleague, and an amazing leader. I call her Keisha. Y'all may know her as Lakisha Young. Lakisha, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this episode is about leadership, talent, and power. And we want to talk specifically about the Oakland REACH, which is the organization that you run. But before we do that, I need everyone to know, I'm just going to just share a little secret that Keisha and I actually met, oh my gosh, 30 years ago? 30 years ago in
Oh,
college?
hmm.
Yes, met 30 years ago in college, used to hang out together, had mutual college friends. I keep telling people I need to pull a whole episode together of all of us and like where are we now? I think that would be
Yeah,
fantastic with like Lorraine
yeah,
and Mona and you and Mika.
yeah.
I think I'm gonna work on that. But what's amazing about it is that we were able to reconnect a few years ago when I was working in Sacramento and you were in Oakland through a friend named Rachel Willis Henry, who was a parent who had her child in an Oakland school. Just really took a huge dynamic in leadership and was working with me. And just by coincidence, doing some work in the state capitol.
She was on the Reach team when we
Right.
went to you. Yeah.
Right. Yep. She was on the Reach team working as a parent organizer for Reach. And I still have that picture and I'm gonna try to see if we can put that picture up in this episode where we just looked at each other and we were like, I know you. Like I know you.
So it was a
And
long
it,
time. Yeah.
it was a long time, but the great thing about it is, man, I'm so proud of you because, you were always so smart and brilliant, even in college. And just to see the manifestation of you as a mother, as an educator, and as a leader for the Oakland Reach specifically has just been awesome. So, for those people who do not know, can you tell them a little bit about the Oakland Reach and what it is?
I have had to talk about the Oakland Reach in so many different ways because we're going into our 10 years. So February will be 10 years for me. So I would say that like the best way for me to talk about Oakland Reach is really to talk about our mission, to be honest with you, because our mission has actually changed. For a big chunk of Reach, our mission was all about demanding this, demanding quality, right? It was also mostly Oakland focused. And then when we really changed our mission to step into what we had become, it was less about demanding and it was more about building. We had started to become builders because demanding wasn't getting us anywhere, right? And so our mission statement is we build multi-generational education solutions to liberate our communities to design a life of their own versus one that's chosen for them, right? And I think that is a huge thing about to explain Reach. Reach, we build solutions, and we'll have a chance to get into those solutions. We are still hugely focused on liberation, still hugely focused on power to the people, and making sure that our solutions serve our communities. And this is all so that our families and our kids can live a life of their choosing and not one that you kind of fall into because of life circumstances or because you don't have the education or background. I mean, Jay, you started this off saying we met in college. And so our lives have followed a particular trajectory because we went to college. We graduated from college. And my daughter, my firstborn, just graduated from college, right? And
Congratulations.
so that's thank you. That's exciting. I have a sophomore in college as well, and then a sophomore in high school. But education is the equalizer. That's everything, right? And so there's so many things, obviously, that I would want to be part of solving, specifically even for the Black community. But I know, as someone who started my first 7, 8 years of life in the housing projects of San Francisco, that education has always been that bridge to something more abundant and better, for me.
That's amazing. And I want to dive into that because for two reasons. One, we just went through a rebrand ourselves. And so I think that is also an amazing character development to be in a nonprofit space and start off with one direction and then be able to pivot and say, well, wait a minute, there's nuances here, there's something more here. And to be able to successfully create that and not lose your original mission, but add on to what I really feel like you've done, and I hope to aspire to do with the direction that we've taken with not solely focusing on charter schools independently, but also focusing
Mhm.
on just all the options that are out there. So there's two
Mhm.
reasons why I wanted to talk to you. One was because I want to talk about this parent power and how you have gone, like you said, from demanding to building, which I think is brilliant. And I think in a post-pandemic era where we've seen the learning loss be a chasm, a canyon, a crater, there has to be this need for nuances around that. And you've dived in that specifically with parents. The other thing that's also just so fascinating about your work is the fact that you've decided to work within the system where a lot of us
Mhm.
have gone out of it, right? Like,
Mhm.
we talk all the time about the system is not designed for us. We have people that are on this show that, I decided no longer to be in a traditional public school system. I decided to create a micro school. I decided to charter schools. But you found success by building this model within the Oakland Unified School District. So we've got to talk about that as we move into this REACH district model. Um, so let's set the stage for that. So Reach has been around for over a decade. You've been working in nonprofit, building strong teams and educating and coaching people. COVID happened, specifically in the state of California. There was just a shutdown of all public schools operating and opening. And you were like, well, what are we going to do with our babies in Oakland? Because families got to go to work, kids got to still be educated, and you created these family hubs. Can you talk a little bit about what happened and how was that the tipping point to where you are now?
Yeah, great question. I think before a month before the pandemic hit, we had just had a second big policy win. So for people who will watch this, Reach started off as an advocacy organization, quote unquote parent advocacy, and so we had one big policy win, and that was the opportunity ticket, which is around like if schools close, families from those impacted schools get priority preference into a higher performing school. So then we asked our families what was keeping them up at night about their kids' education, and most families came back with something literacy focused. We hadn't had a plan to focus on literacy, but Reach has this formula called ask, listen, build, liberate. So we're always asking and listening to our families, always. And then we build because our families understand their pain. They can't always tell you what to do with the pain, right? Like they know their pain very clear. It's our responsibility to build the things that actually build to liberation. So by the time the pandemic hit, we had already been pretty deep in the literacy space in Oakland. We had been so deep in it that we were co-leading a citywide coalition with the NAACP to bring all the charters, the district, and all of the reading organizations together under one coalition to commit to increasing academic outcomes by 20% over a 2-year period. So that's where we were like January of 2020. And then in February of 2020 is when the district unanimously, the board signed, approved the MOU to move to the science of reading. So that was 2020. And then to your point, a month later, everything shut down. So when everything shut down, two things happened. So first, because we are so locked in with our families, I mean, we had literally just come off of hundreds of families being in tons of campaign meetings, learnings, and everything. And then everything shut down. So we first right away went straight to our families that Monday, March 16th. I'll never forget. Shutdown was Friday, March 13th. By the 16th, we had surveys going out to our families to basically say, what's going on? How you being impacted? Did you get put on the sidelines? What's happening? What do you need? What do you have? So that by the end of March, we had taken all that data and started our Reach Relief Fund. Okay. So first, what we took care of is basics. People can't focus on education if they can't pay the light bill, if they can't get groceries and all that stuff. So the timing too, Jay, was perfect because everybody with resources was also scrambling. They were being impacted. They knew they had a certain level of privilege, but people were looking to figure out where to put their dollars, right? To help folks who they considered less privileged. And we had the net to catch it, right? With the relief fund. We had put everything together. We had the infrastructure set up. So we were able to raise about almost $500,000, right? To give relief dollars to Oakland, to 1,000 Oakland families twice. Okay. So while we were doing that, we were like, okay, I don't know about you, Jay, but I was kind of watching Cuomo and Fauci on CNN and trying to gauge going to be a long or short term. But Jay, honestly, I sat there and I was like, so first I would say I was disillusioned with the advocacy work. So, there's always it was like there was always something in me that led to this being able to happen. I was festering around something to say, nobody's reading better as a result of what we're doing. I was proud of the work we had done to bring everybody together. But at that point, we're 4 years in. So I'm just kind of like, when does this thing break? When do we actually be able to count on fingers and toes that these babies are actually increasing proficiency? This feels like a win in the game that we've been brought in. And I note the game we've been brought in, how they've allowed parents to be in this work, but it doesn't feel like the kind of win that I want to be a part of. Like I got into this to increase proficiency, to get these kids on track. And I feel like parents bring us proximate problems, but we never give them proximate solutions. They say my kid can't read, we say go to a board meeting. They say my kid can't read, and then we say come do this other thing.
So the direct line to getting to impact is a little bit gray. Yeah.
Right. And that's because of the way that parents were brought into the mix. We were not brought in, those of us who were leading this work were not brought in to be direct builders to that problem. It was still like, we'll focus on this system, district or charter. So anyway, that was already keeping me up at night. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't excited about the wins. They didn't feel like wins. Between that,
authentic. Yeah.
It didn't feel like me. It didn't feel real. And I felt very responsible. Like I felt very responsible for the families. I felt like they trust us. And I don't feel like we're taking them on the right path to liberation. So my spirit was unsettled. So that was already the feeding ground. I was already I was already feeling anxious about it. So then I'm listening to Fauci and them, and I'm like, and I remember one of the CNN episodes, they were kind of like, well, we may go back in October, or we may go back at the start of the year, but, then the people are going to pass it around again, and then we'll be shut down again. And I remember sitting there and just being like, our families are already dealing with so much instability in just the regular everyday setup that we have in this public education system. How are they supposed to manage all this complexity? So that's what it's like. We have to. So if you put these things together, discontent around, was the advocacy work actually changing lives, and instability around quality and rigor that our families could get access to for the rest of the year. You put those things together and you get the hub, the virtual family hub. Because it really was a combination of, on the left side of the discontent of, they're not doing it right. We need to build the model of excellence that we've been advocating for. We need to build, because now everything's shut down. Everybody is kind of like, what do we do? Districts, schools, CMOs, whoever, everybody was up in arms. So it's like, let's build. And then we wanted to build something that could persist through the ups and downs of the pandemic changes, right? So that our families always had a consistent, high quality place to connect to. So they felt consistency and they could thrive. I always said, I bet you what we're going to do is make sure our families thrive in this moment versus just survive. That was our model. How do we build that? And that's how the hub came about. The hub, which was virtual, the virtual family hub, was essentially almost like a school. And I think what in the beginning, Jay, we partnered. So K through second grade was really built internally, right? I brought someone on who had a lot of academic leadership and school leadership experience, who was partnering with us. And we built out the K through 2 model of it. The 3rd through 8th grade model, we actually partnered with the National Summer School Initiative. They were just getting started themselves. And we were like, hey, Can we join? And they were like, great. So they managed all the academics for the 3rd through 8th grade. And then we hired some teachers who were kind of the facilitators. So we were running our own thing. And, you know, I think I've shared the results a ton of time. When you make the main thing, you'll be really surprised about what happens. Just miracles happen. These babies can do it. It's us, it's us, it's us. In the first 5 weeks of the hub, 60% of the students went up 2 or more reading levels on the district SIPS assessment, and 30% went up 2 or more levels. We were like, oh, snap. So in a moment where everybody's talking about a gap, we're talking about climbing a mountain right now. These are the same kids who are not even thriving in their in-person environments, right?
Wow. And you wait, I think we need to set on that. So they weren't even thriving in the in-person environment. Within a short period of time, you were able to get them to excel virtually with connected to a family hub. Like that statement,
Connected to the hub. Yeah.
We need to just marinate on that for a minute, because that
Mm-hmm.
says so much to the power of parents,
The power of
specifically
parents.
families in this space. And I wanna direct us to that, because there's a quote that you've been quoted by saying before. It says, if you give parents the best, they will start expecting the best, which I think is beautifully said, and often not said enough, especially in this public education space, because so many people will look at parents as being agitators and disruptors and not wanting to work with them. And you just said something that shows actually counter to that. Like, if you give them the tools that they actually need specifically for their students and other students in their community, they might have a better success rate than you've had within a whole school in a whole school year.
Well, we actually have the data to back it up, because you know that so the hub was a success, and the K through 2 numbers I shared with you, those all came, our K through 2 teachers were paraprofessionals. Those paraprofessionals were like the mamas and grandmamas. They were parents, they had kids in the system. They helped get those great results, right? But when everybody went back to school and we evolved into the Liberator model, right, which was upskilling parents and caregivers to be paid literacy and math tutors, we had SERPI. SERPI did a third-party research study on this, and pretty much the conclusion they came to is that parents can be as effective and are as effective as teachers when it comes to tutoring children, when they have the tools. So we actually have research to back that up, that if they're in the right infrastructure, right? We don't put parents in the right infrastructure. We don't make them proximate enough. And then we wonder, and then when it doesn't work out, then we want to push them to the side. But
Right. Or blame them. Right.
we want to blame them, or we push them to the side. But by teaching them how to be tutors, teaching them how to be pedagogical experts, right? They were able to get results similar to teachers. This is not a competition with teachers, but it's to say, in an environment where our kids are increasing their learning gaps, you need everybody to be proximate to closing that gap, including families. I mean, that's what
Especially
you
now.
see in micro schools, right? In micro schools,
Right.
that is, or homeschooling, that's parents being super proximate to addressing the problem for their own kids. The reality, though, is that a lot of families can't make that choice for tons of
Mhm.
reasons, right?
Or don't even know how to. They don't even know what that choice looks like. Right.
They don't, but I think that, like, because we've worked, and we'll get into this, because I will say in our model, some of our most successful implementations have actually been with CMOs. So I do want to get into that. When CMOs step up to be what they're supposed to be, which is the innovators and things of that nature, miracles happen and things move fast. But to go back to working with
But
the
wait,
district
just for clarification for anyone listening, a CMO is what?
charter management organization.
A charter management organization. Okay, so just make sure people are clarified, because
Yeah,
sometimes we talk at these high levels as educators, and some
we
people are
do.
like, "What are they talking about?" So,
No, I'm
got
glad
you.
you. I'm
Right.
glad you. But just to back up a little bit on the district side, because we work and people ask why you work with districts. I was like, because that's where all the kids are, right? It's like, yeah, it's hard working with systems, but like, if we don't work with systems, who's going to work with systems, right? This is where most parents choose to put their kids in district schools, and whether that choice is convenience, right? Because I'm like, a parent is choosing between convenience and quality. If you have privilege, you can do both. If you don't, you are likely going to pick convenience. That is not, if you come back and we talk again, Jay, in 10 years, this will be the exact same way, right? Like the this public school market is always going to be larger. And we have to start realizing that this is the place where families are choosing to put their kids. But the last part I want to add are foster youth. You have to think about foster youth, right? And a lot of your foster youth children are also going to be in your district public schools. They're not going to be as highly likely to be in these choice settings unless they happen to be placed in a family who just kind of like has that kind of agency around education or have done that before. So when I say your most underserved students are in your districts, that is the truth because your district school is on every other corner,
Right.
not your charter
And
school.
they have to take everybody, and there's not the
They
luck
got
of
to
getting
take
into a
everybody,
lottery.
and whether it's
Right.
good, bad, or indifferent. So we
Right.
just go. So if anybody want to know why we do what we do, is because that's where all the babies are. And but we also work with charters because that's where learners are as well. But in the grand scheme of like where most of the Black kids are, they're mostly in district schools.
Which
So
is also a good point because and I just want to give a shout out to that as well because we've created such this polarizing conversations around choice that you can only have one choice or one choice is better than the other choice. And again, in your working in your collaboration with coalitions, you've said, look, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how it operates. Is it serving our babies? And if it is, bet, let's use that. And so I think that like that's also the brilliance to this. I spoke to you recently, and I want because you've been so excited about it, and I want to make sure that we share all of that as the backstory and the history. But what is happening now? Like what have you done now through this decade of experience, this building model with parents at the center? What's this reach district, parent reach district that you have now? Talk to us about that.
we've had over the past few years, coming out of the pandemic, we had two solutions. One was in system, so directly in systems. One is out of system. The out of system is the reach parent district. So I'm going to talk about that more. The in system is the Liberator Model, which I was just talking about, which was about upskilling parents and caregivers to be paid tutors in the school districts, right? And they are hired and paid by the systems. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because our biggest and scaled replication was obviously in Oakland, but we have replicated in 5 other places, right? But one of, I would say, our most successful replication was with a CMO, which is Rocky Mountain Prep in Denver, Colorado, which has 12 schools. That was an amazing replication because charters have their own money, their own dollars. They don't have the same labor challenges, right? And we put that all together with a strong leader. Trisha Noyola was the leader. She just left to go to KIP Foundation, right? You put all that all together, Jay. I got an email from Rocky Mountain Prep in May of 2024 saying, we want to do this. Do you know we had all of their tutors, family tutors, hired and working on their payroll in January? That means we trained Rocky Mountain Prep. That means they did all the selection and recruitment. We provided the technical support, and those folks started in January. With our model in Oakland, we have to pay the parents a stipend until they're hired because the district by law cannot pay people who are not employees.
Who are not certified, right? Is that right too?
Well, no, they don't have to be certified to be a tutor. They get
Okay.
trained by us, they get hired. They get hired
Mhm.
by the district and go from there. Now, if they want to move on to teacher and stuff, but Rocky Mountain Prep was able to hire these people full time, starting that fellowship. So you get that difference. That's the difference in systems. Same model, more flexibility. Feel me? Right?
I
So
get you. Following it.
I just want to name that.
Hmm.
We're about to so we have replicated the Liberator model in several places, but we're about to phase that out. People want to ask, well, why are you phasing that out? Is because not enough systems in our country who have done the work to build the kind of aligned curriculum that's needed to really bring in these tiered interventions. We're like, the Liberators are tier 2. They're working in small groups. But for them to do that, districts need to have aligned and adopted curriculum. OUSD already had that. Rocky Mountain Prep had that. So I've talked to dozens and dozens of folks who really are interested in the Liberator model, but it's costly because you have to pay the tutors and they don't always have their academic infrastructure set up in a way to really bring that in successfully. And so when you mirror that, so now I'm about to move over. So when you mirror that, and we've been, to your point, you mentioned this early, Jay, and I appreciate you mentioning about us working with districts. Because we've been so close to OUSD, we understand what they can do and what they can't do, right? And I kind of stepped back and was like, our kids are doing worse. If you look at the MTSS triangle, that's the multi-tiered system for like literacy, tiered supports. Most kids are supposed to get most of their content learning from direct instruction with the teacher. And then less kids, need tiered supports. So one-on-one should be like 5%. We've got one-on-one, I think, at this point at like 40%. So this is really a crisis. Everybody knows it's a crisis, but I'm just sharing it from this really, really like, this is the data behind that. So I was like, oh, well, we need to build something. We got an in-system model. It's been replicated, but we need an out-of-system model, right? That can partner still with systems, district or charter, but can also go direct to families. So that you don't have to be, one of the things I've seen over the past decade is gatekeeping. A lot of gatekeepers, right? We gatekeep learners. Systems gatekeep learners, right? CBOs gatekeep learners, right? And I think everybody is well-intentioned, but ultimately, I want any parent at any time in any city to be able to become a REACH parent district parent and get access. So I want to step back to say what the REACH parent district is, because I keep going into it. So let me back up. So the REACH parent district is essentially, the REACH parent district provides high impact virtual tutoring directly into the homes of low income, families in general. But it provides family success coaching to ensure that families can optimize the tutoring. That's what's really huge. So we spent almost 2 years visioning this out and building this out. We researched over 300 providers, put providers through a rigorous kind of certification process, demoed the providers. And so parents on our team demoed the providers with their own children. And then we selected providers for a pilot. We ran a pilot for 7 months, got crazy results. I'll just give a couple examples. With the provider we're scaling with, which is Amira Learning, which is an AI provider, kids in the first 3 months got 7 months of reading growth. Okay. And our usage was either 20% with live synchronous tutoring or 50% higher with the AI tutoring than the districts. That is what the REACH Parent District is here for. It is to drive usage with families higher than districts can drive usage on their own.
That's solutions driven. That's solutions driven, right? The teachers can't do it on their own. Yeah.
They cannot do it all on their own. I always say that the teachers are always in this quagmire of capacity, skills, and interest,
And
right?
time.
Yes, and time. That's actually great. I'll add that to my formula. Capacity to do it, the skills to do it, depending on where it is. Sometimes it's interest. Do I want to do it or not? And then, like I said, just the sheer amount of time that you have in school. So we have to start on the outside, building solutions that are turnkey, that bring families more proximate right here at the front door. Families are not proximate enough academically as they should be when they carry the big burden. So we always say this saying, this saying, Jay, people closest to the solution should be closest to solving it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love the look. I love the look.
Okay. Do y'all really want to put in the work? What it requires for that to be true? Because I promise you that nobody is going to bring a parent close to the solution if they are not forced to, if the solution itself is not designed to do that, because most folks don't know how to bring parents close. So it ends up being workshops and things like that the schools are not even measuring. They feel good. They get 100 parents to show up to a workshop and they're like, oh, we just taught the parent, we just shared all this data, we did all this stuff. The parent feels good. They have a dopamine hit and they go home and we're still at square one. This is, you already know, Jay.
Shaking my head because
You already
I
know.
love you, Keisha. I love you so much, and I'm I want to just take a moment to pause because I know you've got so much to share with us, but there is a general sentiment around a lot of education leaders, both teachers, nonprofit advocacy organizations, that you just said in a quick second of how a lot of them are feeling. And it's the sense of like we're just doing all these activities, but there's really no outcomes behind it. And so it's just like you just feel like you're constantly on this hamster wheel of thinking you're going in the right direction. And what you're about to share with us is that, okay, this all feels good. That dopamine hit was fantastic last night. What you gonna do next, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't really have a way to measure what the parents do at home. There's no way to see if what you did in that session actually resulted in them being able to do something more at home. Well, we addressed that with this solution. That's why it took us 2 years to build. Part of it is tech enabled. Part of it is, honestly, I was like, can we do this? I mean, there were times I got frustrated, but with what happens, Jay, is that a child's at home with their parent or caregiver, whoever is at the time responsible for that child's education. It could be the parent, it could be a caregiver. We are scaling with Amira Learning because they did so great in our pilot and they are cost effective. I know
And the
that
Amira Learning is the AI tutoring,
the
right?
AI tutoring, people have mixed feelings around AI. I will tell you that you can have mixed feelings about a lot of things too. I have mixed feelings about AI and I also love it. Okay. What we have been able, how I am able to utilize it, not just in my organization, but the way that this AI tutoring has created so much access and results for our community cannot be denied, right? Amira Learning, our live synchronous tutors who were amazing, by the way, we paid for the pilot. So everybody that was in the pilot, we paid for their tutoring. That cost $30 an hour for $30 a session. Most of our families were doing 2.5 sessions a week. So you can do the math on that. Amira is charged us $16 for the year. So you can imagine that when we start seeing the academic outcomes that we saw with them, it was a no-brainer to scale with them. And the reason why we want to scale with them is because the Reach Parent District, we've got parents right now enrolling in the Reach Parent District. They get the family success coaching and everything, I want to say free to them. So if you had a parent right now, it's free to them. But when we set up our district partnerships, our CMO, our first, we've locked in our first, we are going to work with OUSD, but our first current partnership that's locked in is with Lighthouse Public Schools in Oakland. And they're a charter. So that's what I'm saying. The charters, we're working with the charters too. And when the charters are focused, they can move faster.
Right. That's always been the case. And
Right?
it's one of those things like and what you are naming is this is what this should look like. We should be able to work with both district and charter and get people to
Exactly.
move at the speed that they need to, always all focused on the results, right?
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
feel like the district, like to my district folks, they've been moving fast, but God, they've had so many blows here and there over the past few weeks. And then when I compare it to Lighthouse, they just don't have those same types of challenges. So I should have all the CMOs lined up to have their families in the Reach Parent District. But the reality is, and I want to add this, Jay, is that the CMOs and the districts need us to be bringing the solutions to the table. It's turnkey. Just our solution is turnkey. Okay. So, um, so just so I'm creating the right visual, right, around this is that with Amira Learning, families are required to do 30 minutes. And Amira is AI, so it's an avatar. And we find that kids with special needs really, really like that. You know, they're not always really liking this live one-on-one, dealing with somebody all up in their face. They really respond well to Amira. 80% of the families in the pilot noted that their kids were below grade level. 34% had IEPs and 70% were African American. And we still saw the results that we saw, right? So families, and we do, so family success coaching for your audience is hybrid. So it's both tech enabled and it's both live. The minute that you enroll in the Reach Family District, you automatically get an email that has you do two things. One, it tells you who your family success coach is. Your coach is going to be a mama, a grandmama, or whatever from our communities. Everything we do puts folks in our communities as the bridge, right? Because we just feel more comfortable with people we know who understand our struggles. We have a lot of single mothers, right? We have a lot of folks with language challenges, right? So that is really, really key. So you find out who your success coach is. Then you get a link in that email, Jay, to um, sign up for your onboarding session. Every family has to complete an onboarding session before they are officially in fully enrolled. And the reason why they need to complete that onboarding session, because by the end of that onboarding session, they will have their login and everything for Amira. Because we have pretty intense metrics. We want families completing their first dosage 10 days after they finish the onboarding session, right? Let's get it done right away, right? And then that's when the family success coaching happens. Family success coaching is a combination. They can call or text their family success coach anytime during business hours, but they also receive automated messages that are personalized, that pulls all of their usage data from Amira to help them understand how they're tracking, how they're performing, and all of that. So that's the tech enabled piece. But then they also have the live supports. And then we also run workshops and things of that nature. But the workshops are very relevant to them being able to take that data and what they're doing and bridge that into schools. In our district partnerships, we'll be working with the districts directly to bridge that data. So we have data from learners, and then we bridge that directly with the district to say, this is what's happening with usage, this is what's happening there. So that's how we're partnering with systems. But then we also do that one-on-one for families. So I'm excited because I've been wanting this for a long time. I don't like people to be left out. I know that we got families that are just doing their thing and they just need access. They don't need to be a part of the right group, the right classroom, the right school, the
The
right
right
whatever,
zip code.
the right
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
code. They just need a QR code. They need a QR code.
Not a zip code, a QR code.
They
How
need
about
a
that for some
QR code.
messaging?
That's some
Right.
messaging, right? You get this QR
Mm-hmm,
code and you in there. And it doesn't matter where you are in the country. We've got
mm-hmm.
families in our pilot. We have families in Oakland and Rochester. Shout out to it, my girl Ashara Baker, who was previously with National Parents Union. She helped bring a bunch of families from Rochester into that. So we've got families signing up from all over the country. And we want to work with everybody, CBOs, districts, because us being a community-based organization, we know that a lot of our CBOs are focused sometimes more on advocacy work. So if you want a direct service solution, you don't have to build it no more. We built it. Just put your families in it, right? Let's open this thing up, Jay, so that everybody has access.
So, for example, if I am a parent in Texas, I know that my child is, at 60% in her math literacy right now. I would do what? Like, walk me through a scenario of how that works for me. I call, get a family
Well,
success
all
coach.
you have to do is apply. So if on this show you want to put the QR code up or the link to the Reach Parent District, so they go to our landing page, they enroll. After they enroll, they receive an email. That email will tell them who their family success coach is. And then it would also have them sign up for an onboarding session. They can do this without help from anybody else. This is just them. Once they enroll and complete the onboarding session, that's it. They're ours. We got them, right? That's it. And so, but they are assigned their family success coach. All they have to do is enroll, and then the system does everything else.
I think you answered the question. Like, it's like, well, people are like, well, why did you move away from the Liberator model? But one of the questions that I have for you is, and I guess this could be our question for where, there is this national driver to create education savings accounts. Some people will call them vouchers for people to go to private schools. Ideally, though, it's a voucher that gives parents the power to have money to use for tutoring or to use a small stipend of tuition to go to a private school if they choose. The challenge that we've had on a national scale is, should we adopt this? Should we not adopt this? Because it's a very far right concept that pretty much looks at privatizing our education system. However, as you were talking about it, I was thinking, could we use dollars like that for like a Liberator model to get parents tutoring? Is that something that you could see as being favorable?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the Liberator model, it would be the Reach Parent District. But because the Reach Parent District is the actual like that's the infrastructure. Liberator Model has to be picked up by districts to work because they're hiring parents to be tutors. We did a lot of digging into the ESA stuff as we were building this out. I was like pretty surprised to see how much the ESAs were choice without real choice. Okay, so first I want to name that is that there's a lot of inequities in the ESAs.
Not all ESAs are created equal at all, right?
Well, it's also because it just amplifies. I mean, I think it amplifies the same issues on choice that you would find in any other thing, which means that how many parents actually know that this thing exists? So that's already problem number one. Number two, if you're a family or a parent who understands that the ESAs exist, if you're on top of it, then you may be a shopper. You may be someone who's shopping around, choosing your experience. A lot of our families don't know that they can even do that. So what ends up happening is that you have the private schools reaching out to them to try to recruit them. If the parent chooses the school, then that private school gets the scholarship money, right? So the private school has a lot of incentive to bring in these students because they get those ESA dollars. The question is that is the parent being a shopper? Are they able to pick the thing that works for their kids? What I've seen is there's a couple things about ESAs I would say, which is the short answer is that we will continue to look at ESAs as an option. ESAs are changing a lot in front of our eyes. So there used to be a lot more ESAs that were just for supplemental instruction. I've seen quite a few of those roll up into the main scholarship ones, which is you opt out of the system, we give you your $8,000 or your $10,000 and you figure it out, right? Especially with kids with IEPs. Like they make it super flexible if you have a kid with an IEP because it costs states a lot of money to educate kids with that have special education needs. So they're like,
And you have to be careful about doing that because if you opt out, then the sole responsibility is on you and you're
it's
in
on
school.
you.
To,
I mean, that's a
yeah,
whole other podcast you can have
yeah,
because
you're
$10,000
100% right.
is not
Mhm.
enough money to service kids who need to be serviced. But folks are going to be more than happy to be like, here's the money. But for everybody else, you may get, I think Florida is like $8,000 or something of that nature. The parent, again, first they got to know about it. So then it's like, who are the vehicles that are actually helping parents understand they have this as an option? Who exists to do that? And then if you have people who exist to tell them about it, do those same people help them be shoppers to determine the best experience for them? So there's a lot of equity and choice challenges in ESAs. We're going to keep our eyes on it because we want to partner with whoever is wanting to do this to bring the Reach Parent District. But there are definitely some real challenges on the ESA front.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to name that because there's also challenges based off of what state you're in. Because, like I said, not all ESAs are created equally, and so like some states make it seem like, oh, you just have this money that goes directly to the parent. You can do whatever you want with it. Some states are like, no, you have this money that goes directly to you sending your kid to a private school. So, and then
Right.
again,
And even if the
there's
money goes straight to them, well, where does the parent know where to put the money? Or even
well,
if we
yeah,
become
and it goes
private,
straight to them.
yeah. So then, but then where
Yeah,
do they know how to put it, right? Or even if
right.
we become an approved provider in a state, how do we make sure that we get to the families who would really need us the most, right? So
Hmm.
there's layers to layers that have to be addressed to really
Yeah,
get to the people we want to serve. And I just think we need to be honest about that.
yeah.
Because
I
everybody
appreciate that.
throws that at me. They'll say, that's why I'm glad you brought it up, is because ESAs are not all they're cracked up to be when you start to get to how do I get from this product that really serves folks to being able to get to those folks? A lot of barriers in the middle.
Well, I think that that's true to everything that you just named, right? Because that's one thing I can't stand is that, look, nothing about education is a silver bullet. Everything needs to be on the table. And when we're talking about the experiences that our children are having in the classroom, outside of the classroom, whether they have an IEP, whether they are, gifted and talented, whether they're homeschooled or in a traditional public school, the reality is that all options need to be on the table. And one thing that I have enjoyed from listening to you and hope that our listeners also catch is that you are putting all options on the tables. You're working within the district, you're working with charters, you're utilizing the autonomy to go further faster. You're working with parents to help them be supplemental to teachers. You're using AI. I mean, this is the universal education that we need to be seeing happening within our schools. And what's even more brilliant about it, and unfortunately, we do not have enough time to talk about it, although you have shared some data points, is that it's working.
It is
And
working.
so, as it works, how can we replicate more of this? Keisha, this has been amazing, and I am just like I said, I feel such an affinity and a love for you because I've known you and have watched you grow
Mhm.
literally as a beautiful woman and a mother and a leader. But one of the things that has always been, I mean, you were tutoring in college, right? So this is like this
Mhm.
is your calling. Literally,
Yep.
you were a tutor in college to people who were having trouble in school. So you found your calling, which I think is so amazing because so many people of us out here don't know their calling. And the great thing is that you don't gatekeep, you share it. Like,
Mhm.
if this only existed in Oakland, it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the countries around, the
Mhm.
rest of the schools around this country that need this. And so this Reach district is amazing. We will make sure that we put the QR code up and we're going to say not zip codes, QR codes, right? This is the way to advance our education system. I'm curious to know, Ms. Young, what choice words would you want our listeners to hear from you and how you've been able to just navigate this system of education?
Well, I'll say I was on a panel yesterday, and I'm going to say today what I said yesterday, which is when families lead, students succeed. When families lead, students succeed, and that's how we try to build.
Keisha, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. Continue the great work and thank you just for your leadership and for all your parents. Much love.